Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. After 2 years of Labor, Australians are feeling poorer, and Australia as a nation is weaker. For nearly 110 weeks, the Albanese Labor government has been in power, and on average, every single one of those weeks has seen over 600 additional households sign up for hardship arrangements with their energy retailer. As of today, there has never been in Australia's history more Australians on hardship arrangements because of Labor's energy policy. Only a couple of weeks ago, Mr Speaker, I was at the Sunshine Coast Agricultural Show, and I met a senior citizen who made it very clear that she no longer has hot meals at night because she is desperately nervous about not being able to turn on the heater at night. She has to make a trade-off. But of course that's Queensland. There are places right across Australia where we have senior citizens who can do neither heat nor eat at night because they cannot afford it. I was speaking to the Salvos in Maroochydore only a couple of weeks ago, and they were explaining to me they are seeing a completely different set of people coming in. This is now not just those who have always been struggling in the lower socio-economic bracket, but Middle Australia. More and more families coming for help because they cannot afford to live. We have up the hill in Mapleton in my area a multi-generational family running that IGA. They're going to have to close their doors because of energy prices. Now, all of these people have something else in common, not just the fact that they are finding it hard to make ends meet, but every single one of them were looked in the eye by the now Prime Minister and promised a $275 reduction in their household power bills. 97 times they were made that promise. Now, this was the same Prime Minister who said that his word is his bond, and yet he has let these people down. And still to this day, that Prime Minister and the Minister who sits at this table opposite me now has failed to show the courage to look the Australian people in the eye and say that that promise will be broken. And now is his opportunity to stand in this chamber after I speak today and come clean. That promise of a $275 reduction in household power bills will never be met. Will never be met. This is a minister whose own electorate is in the state of New South Wales. There are people in New South Wales who will be paying over $1,000 more for their electricity bills than what this minister had promised them. Over $1,000 more in the midst of a cost of living crisis. This is how bad it is. Now, over last year's budget and this year's budget, this government has announced $6.5 billion in energy relief packages. And no doubt the talking points for the backbench of Labor will get up and talk about this. This is billions of dollars to mop up the failure of the minister who sits right here at this table. Billions of dollars. And guess what? He still can't achieve his $275 reduction in household power bills. I mean, I gave this minister the benefit of the doubt over the first year or so in office. I thought to myself, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. He is unconsciously incompetent. Unconsciously incompetent. But he now knows full well what is happening, and he still will not come clean, which makes him consciously incompetent. Now, that is a far worse situation, because he knows full well that the people to whom he told untruths are out there struggling to turn their lights on, keep the heating on, cook their meals at night, and yet he goes out still and promises them false prophecies of a world in which prices will come down. And yet no serious energy commentator agrees with his forecast, his prediction. And this is why we have the problem we have. You know, we have had accusation after accusation from this government calling on the opposition to release the costings of our energy policy. And we have made it very clear. We shall do that. We shall do that in due course and well ahead of the next election. And we say that from opposition. Here we have a government. It's been in power for 2 years. It still cannot tell the Australian people the cost of its energy plan. Still to this day. The minister now can interject if he likes and tell us the cost of his energy plan. The cost? The cost? He can't. I've welcomed the interjection. And so if the minister does not wish...
I've allowed a lot of personal kind of slanging here, but you need to direct your comments through me in the chair.
I apologise, Deputy Speaker, if the minister wishes to interject with the costings of his policy. He is more than welcome to do so right now. Not take it. Note that for Hansard. Right? Note that for Hansard. And so yesterday, the Prime Minister was given 3 opportunities to answer the question of the total system cost of his plan. 3 times. 2 questions, 1 intervention, 3 times. Not once could he tell us the number. Last night, though, we had the minister go on television and say that it's going to cost $121 billion. Total system costs $121 billion. But does that include projects including Snowy 2.0? No. Copper String? No. Doesn't include that either. Does that include all behind-the-meter investments made by consumers? No, that's not part of it either. And how about the distribution network, where the minister decided he was going to lecture the House today about the difference between transmission and distribution? The distribution network is not included. And so maybe I was wrong. Maybe it's not unconscious incompetence. Maybe it is unconscious incompetence. Either way, he is wrong. $121 billion. So since this government and this minister is incapable of saying the cost, let's go to the Princeton University, University of Melbourne, University of Queensland Net Zero Australia study, which makes it clear that it's $1.2 trillion. $1.2 trillion. That's with a T, Minister. Trillion dollars. Now, this goes to why we're in this trouble right now. If the minister himself doesn't know the costing of his plan, no wonder Australians are now paying among the highest electricity bills in the world. This government has stalled on its renewables rollout. It's running, according to experts, at 1/3 of the pace at which it should. This government is suffocating the supply of gas in this country. Right now, we have the market operators speaking to companies, asking them to not produce so much through winter, down tools, produce less, for fear that otherwise households can't use gas. We have, under this minister, 90% of Australia's baseload power exiting the grid over the next decade. 90%. Has this minister ever stood and spoken about the need to ensure that we do not prematurely close baseload power stations without a replacement? Never. Never. Even with his own counterparts in New South Wales, the Eraring extension, he's on record saying, oh, look, at most maybe a couple of months. I mean, they came out recently saying up to 4 years. This is the level of incompetence of this minister, of this government, and who pays the price? Who pays the price? I tell you who. The senior citizen I spoke to at the Sunshine Coast Agricultural Show. That's who. The people who are rocking up to Salvos and Vinnies needing help, they're the ones who are paying for this absolute incompetence. And it goes on and on. At the end of the day, Deputy Speaker, under this incompetent Labor government, which still to this day cannot cost its own policy in government with all its resources, it's the Australian people who are hurting. There's a reason why Australians feel poorer today than they did 2 years ago. That's because they are. Australia as a nation is weaker because of this government. And the minister who sits across from me today is now welcome to stand up and explain to the Australian people the total system cost of his energy plan through to net zero 2050. Minister, all yours. Give us a number. Hear.